We're not necessarily talking about the government building its own semiconductor, factory like it tried to do without much success in former years. But what about its support of companies like Intel? Do you find that problematic, or how should this chip shortage get resolved? And do those two issues really have anything to do with one another, Intel's struggles and what's happened because of the pandemic?
No, Intel is struggling because Intel was not well managed for a long time, contrary to their entire history. They got a new president right now. I know 2 or 3 people that have worked with him and say he's a very, very strong manager. And I expect Intel to turn around. Put it on the board of Intel that they allowed the company to get behind TSMC. You mentioned Semitech, the 1980s consortium where the government dumped $500 million into the semiconductor industry. Nothing happened with that. It was all wasted money. And the point of remembering that is that the last time there was this problem, the government had to help some way, and the Democrats had to blame the Republicans and vice versa, and standard political stuff. And of course, what they did was build a fab that nobody needed, that was obsolete before it got online. They converted it to optoelectronics, and then they shut it down. So the government can't help is the point. And they'll come up, they're basically going to give a bunch of money to chip companies. I don't understand why that has to be true. I've testified in front of Congress 5 times, once in the Senate, 4 in the Congress, that we have some of the smartest, richest companies in the world. I can't understand why taxpayers' money, hard-earned money, is going to be shuttled into these chip companies to make ends meet, because they can't make enough product. It's boom times, not bad times.
Which is a fair point, but as you've also pointed out, America's role in the chip industry has shriveled to a shadow of what it once was. Why not give companies like Intel $50 billion to expand their production and try to move more of the supply chain onto our shores? Is that just unrealistic? Do you think that money is going to be wasted?
It's completely unrealistic. Why don't we move the vacuum cleaner industry back on shore? I could name a day when America invented and owned the entire vacuum cleaner industry. Most chips, 90% of chips, are commodities. They can be made in a dozen countries in the world. And it doesn't matter that we're not making them. This old idea, I joined the chip industry 60 years ago when chips were hard to make. You had to have a PhD to even understand how they worked. That's not true anymore. A lot of people can make chips. There are only a certain number of chips, high-end processors, high-end memories, high-end analog chips that really matter. And we make all that we need to make with world-leading companies. And by the way, to answer your question directly, why doesn't Intel take $50 of their own $1 million out of the bank if they want to build a plant in America? Why would the government need to give them money to build a plant? They got money all over the place.
So then I guess my question would be, when people look and say, I can't get my hands on one of these vehicles. This happened with one of my neighbors. She wanted the new minivan that she couldn't get for 4 months. And people are hunting all over the country trying to find, cars. And they say, OK, so do we just wait this out? It's just an oddity of the pandemic, and we're going to come out of this maybe stronger as an industry? Is that sort of what you would say? I mean, are we in a good position here, this country, as it relates to this vital piece of the supply chain?
We have some companies, and even a company I'm associated with, that are limited in supply because of semiconductor chips. If you want to ask why is the automotive industry limited in its supply of semiconductor chips, tell the automotive companies, CEO by CEO, to look in the mirror, with one exception, Toyota. And right now, it takes about 120 days, a long time, to make a new chip. And it takes another couple of weeks going around the world to put it in a package and test it. Okay, so if you order a chip, you're not going to get it for 6 months. That's point one. Point two is if you aren't qualified and you have to order chips, get them and qualify them, the automotive industry takes 12 to 18 months to qualify a chip. Okay, well, if you knew you weren't going to get oxygen for the next 24 hours, you'd go and buy yourself a bottle of oxygen, and you'd have it so you could use it when you needed it. And what the the automotive companies have done is they pushed inventory back onto the chip companies. They use the Toyota production system, and they have a thing called a Kanban. So it's a little space the size of a small room in a house with a yellow line around it in the manufacturing floor. And if you were lucky enough, in their view, to sell them a chip, then the Kanban needs to be kept full by you all the time. exactly the same way a grocer, it actually
Yeah.
was copied from America, exactly the same way a grocer says to the bread guy, I want bread on my shelves all the time. It's your job to deliver it. But when when the car company says, oh my God, pandemic, we're shutting down, the chip industry follows that, because also it's true, you don't get to put that inventory on the car companies. If they shut down and that model that you were talking about becomes obsolete, the
Yeah.
chip company eat a bunch of inventory. So everybody slowed down, and it takes 120 days or more to rev the wheel back up. Have a little inventory in stores, which Toyota did. They had 5 weeks of inventory, and you'll make it through. It's that simple. Run your company better. Don't ask the government for help.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.